Welcome to Between the Lines. We got a great show for you tonight. We're up to August 25th, so we're almost getting ready for the second round of football tomorrow night, and then a week from tomorrow night, Oak Ridge goes to Clinton, and we're going to be covering that, and we're excited about that game. We had a big week, and things are going well, and we got a great show for you tonight. Every once in a while, we'll get Warren Gooch in here or somebody, but nobody's more important than the chief of police. And the chief's here tonight. Chief, they're going to shoot you in that camera and me in that camera, and that'll get us both. But we're going to talk about Oak Ridge, the city of Oak Ridge, and only my opinion. I've lived here on and off since 1955, but when I was born. But I just feel real good about the way things are going in Oak Ridge. I mean, I always, have been in politics a long time, off and on, and it's harder to manage a sparse rural county than it is a contained area. That's one thing I always talk about. But there are challenges in urban areas and suburban areas that there aren't in rural areas. So there's different things. But I always said it's kind of like anybody, when they don't hear about you, it's good news. And then when they're not talking about you, it's good news. And with all due respect to the last two chiefs, so I knew them both and liked them both. Grew up, obviously with the one before that and the one before that. But the bottom line is that there was always, is this fair, is that fair? And I don't want anybody to comment on any of that, but it's been calm. I felt that way with Paul White in the county. It was calm, took care of his men, did his work, and he was just an outstanding sheriff. And I'm beginning to feel that as an Oak Ridger. And I have to go like this to drive home, so I know you're writing tickets because, I'm trying to be the best I can. And I'm 67, still trying to learn to put my seatbelt on because we grew up when there were no seatbelts, right? And,
correct.
And it was just different. I wear it, when I travel, I always wear it. But anyway, I want to talk to you tonight. I want you to tell us a little bit about where you grew up in Sevierville, you said, right?
Yes, sir.
That was a different time, wasn't it?
Very much so. I grew up in a law enforcement family.
Oh, really? Who was brothers, father?
Actually, both my grandfathers and my father and a lot of my uncles.
Wow.
I remember my Uncle John, my grandfather's brother, was police chief in Gatlinburg when I was before.
That had to be exciting in the 40s and 50s. That had to be exciting.
My grandfather, my Papa Nolan, was a sheriff in Sevier County for 12 years.
Wow.
And so, and it's very interesting. When I was little, like 4 or 5 years old, back in those days, the sheriff lived in the jail.
Oh yeah,
so
a lot of times
they had living quarters in the jail. So when I got to go spend the night with my grandparents, I got to stay at the jail.
That was a compensation. They didn't get paid a lot of money. They had a place to stay, right?
I didn't know. I thought that was normal. I thought everybody's papa had a jail. I didn't know. I didn't know how that worked.
That's great.
So
that was fun for you.
And I also learned a lot about people during that time because I didn't know the difference. People were people. I didn't know who was a trustee or who was. An elected official. I mean, people were just people, and I learned from my grandfather and my family that you treated everybody with respect. And so I learned a lot during that time. So that was one grandfather. My other grandfather, Papa Smith, was a TVA public safety officer.
Wow.
He worked at Norris Dam for several years. He started there during World War II, 1943, and then later went to Douglas Dam. And my dad started with TVA in early 70s. He actually got to work with his dad for about 3 years at Douglas.
How does that work, a TVA public service? I mean, what do you drive back and forth over the dam? You look around. I mean, how does that work?
Well, it's a little different now than it was then, because it also depends whether you're in a time of war or like it was post 9/11.
There you go.
Because
becomes a site of potential. Yeah.
I can tell you. So, I worked at TVA Police for 17 years.
Wow.
So I started my career with Sevierville Police Department. So if I can make it to September 1, that'll make 43 years for me since I started my career. I was only 12 at the time.
He's not telling the truth on that. That's got to be 18. That's 61.
I was really
your
13.
whole career's been law enforcement.
Yes, sir. I started when I was 19.
Good decision? Good decision?
Oh, absolutely. I just was going to be a dispatcher for a couple of years until I get through college and was going to do something else. But once I got a taste of it, I never wanted to change. Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with growing up and dealing with bullies and dealing with people who are treating someone different that's weaker than they are. And I hate bullies. And
Me too.
That's one of the reasons why I really enjoy being in law enforcement is helping to take care of people who can't take care of themselves or trying to protect people who need protecting. So I really enjoy that aspect of it. So I went to Sevierville when I was 19. And I was a dispatcher for a couple of years till I turned 21. I spent 15 years at Sevierville.
Wow.
Was a sergeant for most of that time, for about 10 years there. when they were creating TVA Police, and my dad was a captain there at the time, and they contacted me and asked me if I would be interested in coming to the training staff. I was spent a lot of time teaching at the academies and teaching firearms and teaching, all kinds of stuff, stuff I enjoy teaching. And so they offered me a lieutenant's job on the training staff.
Okay.
And so
Full-time.
So I left Sevierville, went to TVA. Really enjoyed it. Is a job that I was there for 17 years, and I loved it for 15. But they were changing the mission, and it's business decision. They're changing the mission.
Sure.
So the last 2 years were more difficult because it's. I have a lot of friends there, people I love, that are still there, and they do a great job. But it's not the type of law enforcement I was interested in. It changed to a more physical security model.
Sure.
From a more like before 9/11.
Yeah.
We were trying to get the drunks out of the campgrounds and recovering stolen cars and tearing down meth labs and normal police stuff. After 9/11, you're trying to keep.
Who is that guy on top of the dam? Yeah, you want to know who's going to do what.
It was all
suspicious boat, anything, right?
All of a sudden, it was: is this person a person of interest? Is this somebody we need to turn over to the FBI? Is this so? All of a sudden, I went from knowing nothing about the difference between a 69 kV and a 500 kV substation to knowing everything about it. Learned a lot about it. So 17 years there, and at the end they decided they did not want to have a uniformed police force anymore. They're in the process of rebuilding that. I've been talking to my friends there. But since all my officers were losing their jobs, you're talking about 150 people losing their jobs, moving on, and most of them have moved on to the law enforcement agencies. I didn't want to stay there. I mean, I just I couldn't stay there if all my officers were leaving, and so
absolutely.
And I had to be the first one to leave. I couldn't wait until they were gone because they would never know I left.
Yeah.
So that happened on a Friday, and by Monday, and I was talking. This is a long story. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
So I was talking to my wife about it over the weekend, and I was working on my MBA at the time. Right in the middle of all this, I'm working on my master's degree, and Monday morning I got a call from Oak Ridge. And I had told my wife over the weekend, I said, I just had the feeling somebody's going to call me.
Yeah.
And so Monday morning, Chief Kagi called me and asked me if I would, he says, I want to talk to you about a job. I said, well, for who?
Yeah.
He said, for you. I'm like, why would you want me? I just cost 150 people their jobs. Or that's the way I felt. Sorry to hit the microphone. I felt guilty about it because I felt I'd failed them. But he said, I have a lieutenant's job here that nobody wants. I'm like, is that a thing?
Yeah, that's.
I mean, how do you have a lieutenant's job that nobody wants? He said, well, it's the admin lieutenant's job, and none of the sergeants, none of the lieutenants want to do that job. I said, well, tell me about this job that nobody wants. Yeah. And he started describing to me about school resource officers and animal control and dispatch and records, and sounded wonderful. I mean, I love challenges, things I've never done before, and so. Bringing what I learned from TVA as far as how to run a corporation and be able to implement that in Oak Ridge and use those same lessons I'd learned in school and other jobs, loved it here. I mean, I just love the city. I love the atmosphere. I love how the relationship with the department and the city government with the community. I just love how it's all one, how they embrace it. I just, a few years ago, before I took the chief's job here, a friend of mine that was the chief in Sevierville was retiring. He contacted me and said, it's your turn. Yeah. Because the plan was I was supposed to come back to Sevierville. Well, I just didn't feel led to do that. Yeah. I felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. And I had gone from lieutenant to captain in a couple of years, and at that time I was deputy chief here. And so loved what I was doing, loved being a lieutenant. I didn't have to get promoted. Yeah. But then the next thing I know, I'm getting tagged to move into the chief's job, and I haven't regretted it. It's been a lot of fun. We enjoyed living in Oak Ridge. Yeah, we really like living here. It's a good city. Right.
Tell me about your family.
So I told you about Dad. He was a police officer. My granddad, grew up a farmer. Got 2 brothers and a sister. Wow. I'm the oldest. I got a brother in Japan working at Universal Studios there. He's in the entertainment industry, does lighting and design, things like that. Have a brother that's he was a police officer for 18 years. He's done a little bit of everything. He spent years being a funeral director, and now he's moving into the banking industry. I'm really proud of him.
Yeah. He's chasing the money. He's just going right through it.
He's here locally, and then have a sister that's in Louisiana.
Okay.
My family, my wife and I have been married 41 years now.
Wow. She from the same area?
From Sevierville.
Look at that. Same high school class.
I married up. No, she's a year behind me.
Okay.
I married up for sure. She's
That's
a lot
what
of
I
fun.
say too, yeah.
She always calls me her boyfriend. When she introduces me to people, she'll say, "This is my first husband, Robin."
Yeah.
I said, "What does that mean? What's that? Is there something I need to know?"
Yeah, second one coming. Yeah.
She's just hilarious, though. Yeah. She's just funny.
What she do?
Everything. She does a lot of embroidering and does a lot of taking care of grandkids. Yeah. They're the best thing ever.
Yes, they are.
Got 5 of those.
Send them home.
A friend of mine, Captain Ewer, he's retired now. He always used to say the best thing about grandkids is the headlights and the taillights.
Yeah, that's right.
So we have 3 children. Have a daughter that's a nurse practitioner in Chattanooga.
Okay.
Have a son that's a firefighter here in Oak Ridge.
Is that right?
Yeah, he's doing great. Then we have another son who's a protection force officer at the plant.
All in the family, right?
Yeah, he's doing.
While we're on that subject for a second, are you still getting rated by the private sector? We had a problem keeping our officers 10 years ago because Wagon Hut people would come in and, they offer $10,000 more after you train them. Is that not an issue anymore?
No, not really. I mean,
it was for a while. Yeah.
But after Wagon Hut,
I'm not criticizing them.
But we had I'll use Watch Well, for example, because they have more officers.
Great groups.
And I've had a handshake agreement with them since even before I was chief, that they wouldn't take more than 2 of our officers at a time.
I heard there was some kind of agreement.
So, because you put yourself in their place, do they need more officers? Yes. But what does that do to their ability to do their job to hurt us where we can't provide security for their families, their friends, their loved ones in Oak Ridge while they're at work? So they want to make sure they keep a balance. We depend on each other.
Sure.
You look at Oak Ridge, you look at schools, hospitals, businesses, and those are all soft targets, and we take that very seriously. Well, the people that work inside the plant are depending on us to keep their families, their loved ones safe while they're inside the fence.
Yeah, and it's a challenge out there. We're going to take a short break. And this is going well. I may not even have to talk tonight. It's going to be good. You'll enjoy that, folks. But great stuff. Great stuff. That's a lot of officers in one family. That's the most I think I've ever heard.
There's
children.
More.
I figured
there's more.
Well, you had 2 grandfathers. I mean, you had the culture. Okay, Chandler, let's go. 2-minute break, and we'll be right back.
Unlike other health concerns, mental illness is not always easy to see.
DEPR.
Mental illness doesn't show up on a scale.
Bipolar?
Sorting out a mental health concern takes professional diagnosis and treatment.
Anxiety. I thought so.
If you or a loved one has a mental health concern, don't go it alone. For 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral, call 1-800-662-HELP. Learn more at samhsa.gov/support.
What if one day you went to your secret hiding place and instead of what you came for, you found this? What would you do? The truth is, all drug use comes with risk. Before drugs take their toll on you and your family, know that there is help. You can quit. If you or someone you love is struggling with drug use, call 1-800-662-HELP for 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral, or go to samhsa.gov/knowtherisks.
Hello, I'm District Attorney General Dave Clark. My fellow DAs and I successfully fought for new elder abuse laws and procedures that have police departments and agencies using improved tools to protect our seniors. Victims of elder abuse are often unable to recognize or report abuse themselves. They need your voice. If you suspect abuse, contact local law enforcement or Adult Protective Services. Let's work together to protect our seniors.
I'm Andrew Saul, Commissioner of Social Security. Beware of telephone scammers pretending to be government employees. Real Social Security employees will never threaten you. Callers threatening you with arrest or other legal action and demanding money are not from us. If you receive a call like this, hang up, do not provide them with any form of payment or information. Report the call at oig.ssa.gov.
deputy. Her mother worked as a dispatcher.
We're back with Chief. Chief Smith telling me about stories about how he met his wife. We're going to talk about that. They were both dispatchers. Go ahead, Chief. Tell the folks.
So I was dispatching the Sevierville Police Department, and Darlene was a dispatcher. Let me tell you, cutest little brown-eyed girl.
Yeah.
And still the same. And she was a dispatcher at the Sheriff's Department. And so we always tell the story that we fell in love over the radio. And so
That's great.
Another interesting thing about that is I'd go pick her up from work at the jail at the Sheriff's Department when we go out on a date.
Sure.
My dad used to pick my mom up at that same jail when they were dating. And so Dad would always tell the story. He used to go to the jail to pick up dates.
Yeah.
So he said, and I got her back on time, by the way, too.
Yeah. That's great. That is super. That's great. And you said her family was in the same, just all law enforcement.
Yeah, her dad was deputy for a while. Her mother
That's why
was
she made
dispatcher.
that commitment to move. She knows what you got to do it right.
Yeah,
right?
it was her idea. She said, I said, I can commute from Dandridge if you want. She said, no. If we're going to police in Oak Ridge, and she said, if we are going to police in Oak Ridge,
Yeah,
we're going to
she
live
knows
in Oak
the
Ridge.
business, yeah.
No.
That's vested. That's bought in, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about, okay, let's look at Oak Ridge Police Force. Tell me how the city's divided up. And when you sit down and you got a map on your wall and you got patrol officers, how do you see the city from a management viewpoint?
Well, there's a difference in the way I look at it and the way my captains, my patrol captains,
Okay.
my lieutenants look at it, because they will look, if you get down to the lieutenant's level, the sergeant's level, they're very familiar with the zones that the officers are assigned to, where they patrol. From my level, I'm looking at more as where are crimes and crashes and overdoses, where are things actually occurring.
Using some of that master's degree to analyze stuff.
I've got smart people. I've got really smart people that tell me, that I depend on, that because I'm not a crime analyst.
Mm-hmm.
I just know how to use the data. It's kind of like a computer. I know how to use a computer. I don't know what makes it work. Same thing with all the information that these young men and women come up and they'll explain to me where the hot spots are on the map. So when I look at a map, I'm looking at the hot spots and not where are the zones. Like I say, the sergeants, lieutenants, they'll look at those
Those
zones.
of us that have lived here 40 years,
So-
we know where the hot spots are. The ones that have lived here, we know.
Yes.
I mean, roughly, we know. You know what I'm saying?
Now, what's interesting is it moves, it disperses, and we chase it weekly or monthly. And it's kind of like watching the Weather Channel, where you see they'll be showing you, like right over here, you have a high pressure system over. Well, for us, it's like over the shopping area, a high pressure system over this area where we have crashes.
But doesn't it change debate? Like, I could say, here's the hot spots for burglaries. Here's the hot spots for traffic accidents. Here's the hot spots for domestic violence. Doesn't it change?
What's funny is, not funny, ha.
I get
It's some of them, a lot of them are in the same places. Like your crashes and a lot of your crimes are in the exact same spots. They tend to be in the same trends, the same areas. Now, the difference is when people leave the house, they don't leave the house intending to have a crash.
No.
But when criminals leave the house, they leave the house intending to commit a crime.
Right.
So, and they know where they're going and what they're going to do. Yeah. What we try to do is to make them very uncomfortable doing that in Oak Ridge. I can't make somebody stop being a criminal, but I can make them uncomfortable doing it in Oak Ridge and want them to take their business somewhere else. So what we do is we spend a lot of time looking at the maps and then looking at an updated, refreshed map, because when you look at those high pressure areas that I described, they will move, and they move according to where you're doing your traffic enforcement. And it's like when our crime analyst years ago explained to me, I said, we know where the hot spots are, what do we do about it? He said, you do traffic enforcement. I said, for crimes? He said, yes. Because you think about the criminals, they just see that there's blue lights in the area where they're wanting to commit a crime.
That's right.
And they don't understand, how did you know I was here?
Yeah.
It's, I know you were going to talk about technology later, but there's it's like we've had a lot of good success using license plate readers. I think we got 14, 15 license plate readers here in town now, and they tell us when there's stolen cars coming into town, when there's somebody that's wanted coming into town. And it's funny that the criminals, a lot of them, they just can't seem to figure that out. They'll steal a car in Knoxville, come here, bring the stolen car here to commit another crime, and they can't figure out how they're leaving town in a black and white. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like cheating, because you're staying on top of it. We're using technology to our advantage to try to keep the community safe, to make this a place where people want to live, where they want to build businesses, where they want to work, where they want to shop, trying to make it safer.
I think that's true. I mean, I always say, when I'm driving down the road and the officer pulls behind me, I don't feel the same as when a regular car is behind me. I'm always, I think that's true for all people. They go more careful, a little bit busier. They think that the officer's looking at them when the officer's just driving his car, trying to do a good job. But, I mean, yeah, I think, how would a criminal feel? And, and my buddies always told me that were in the academies and stuff would tell me, they're actually more comfortable because they know exactly what to do and how to act and how to run the cover. Criminals accept things better than nervous people do. So it's interesting. Tell me about how many cars do you have on it? What are patrols like? I don't want to divulge information.
No, it depends. The answer is it depends. And it's there's a difference between the way things are when we're at full staff and the way things are right now. And I don't.
Why are we not full staff right now? Just hard to get people?
No, we're actually doing really well in our recruitment right now. Let's go back a couple of years.
Okay, yeah, please.
All right, so normally our turnover rate would be, you asked earlier about people going to the plant. We would lose a couple a year, 2 or 3 a year. I think we lost maybe 2, 3 a year ago that actually went to the plant. They go into either contractor jobs or.
Sure.
Anyway, not a lot. We normally lose 8 or 9 officers, sworn officers per year, which means about every quarter you're losing 2 guys or girls, two men and women that are leaving, and you're having to replace them. The problem is that hole in the schedule of the turnover, because you're looking at about 9 months to train up a replacement, about a year total. From the time you start posting to selection to training and getting them out of field training, it's about a year's process. So you were doing that every quarter to replace 2, which means you continuously had 6 people that were gone out of the schedule because they're in training.
That's right.
So you're not at full. We were never at full staff.
Do we
in that
do any
regard.
recruiting of trained officers?
Absolutely.
Because that was less prep, right?
So we went from, in the previous fiscal year, losing 8 officers a year. Last year we lost 21. So we went from losing 8 per year to losing 21.
Why?
Most of them did not go to other law enforcement jobs. They didn't go to other police departments. They went to non-law enforcement jobs. They got out of it altogether and went to jobs that paid better. So they went to better paying jobs. And I don't fault them for that. I love them, and they're always going to be part of my family. I always will care about them. I want them to do what's right for their family. Sure. But that was the reason. But that's the reason why I was pleased to see what city administration and the council did to raise wages and start working on compensation for city employees. It has helped tremendously. Mm-hmm. Right now I have 3 in the academy. They'll graduate in September. I have 6 that started this past Monday. They'll go to the academy in September, so they'll be out in December. And then they'll start field training. I have 7 more positions I'm working on. And you asked about experienced officers. I ran into one yesterday that's coming to work in September. I ran into him in the sporting goods store here in town. And he was surprised I lived in town.
Yeah,
You live here in town? I said, sure. Well, he's retiring from a department in Florida in the next week starting here. Of course, in Florida, they'll retire 20 years.
Yeah.
So he's a fairly young man, and really glad to have him and his experience come here. And we've got people from other states that are interested now. Our pay is competitive. We always look at Knoxville PD to say if we need to feel like we need to be on a level playing field with Knoxville with what they're paying and what their benefits are, because we're recruiting from the same pool of
What's your
candidates.
total employment in the department?
65 sworn. Altogether is about 85 in the department when you count dispatchers, animal control officers, records people, administrators.
So 20
support.
years ago, 30 years ago, whenever I was more involved, we had 8 cars out during the day and 4 at night when I knew the people that worked here. We'd have 4 patrolling the city at night and 8 during the day. Is that roughly?
It's different now.
Okay, yes, I understand.
It goes back to your question you asked earlier. So normally on a patrol shift, I got 4 patrol teams, and just to handle the workload, you would need the full-time equivalent of 6 people working all the time, plus supervisors. Mm-hmm. Well, that means you got to have 8 officers plus 2 supervisors just to make that happen.
Yeah.
Because of sick leave, annual leave, training time.
When you describe team, you mean two sets, 2 cars, right?
No. When I'm saying team, there's a team of a sergeant, a lieutenant, and 8 officers.
Oh, I got you.
That's a team.
Okay.
And normally in our standard schedule that it's something I put in place a few years ago. I feel like you need to always have at least 6 officers plus supervisors working. And so we were actually using overtime pay to get up to stay up to that 6th position.
Sure.
But because we were so understaffed the past 8-9 months or so, I took it back down to 5 because it was just wearing our people out.
Yeah.
They needed a day off. They didn't need to be forced to work all the time. And so the problem is when you go down to that 5, that's exactly how many it takes just to handle calls for service.
Yeah.
Just to handle the calls that are coming in and having officers respond and have always at least 2 officers responding.
What's the busiest day of the week?
It's actually Monday through Friday.
Is it really?
It's during the weekdays, and it's the busiest hours are like from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And our crashes, most of our crashes are like from 3 to 6 in the afternoon.
I would think so, yeah.
Monday through Friday. You would think weekends, but
Not
Monday
as many
through
people on the
Friday,
road, though.
3 to 6, and the plant is just let out.
That's right.
So that has a lot to do with it too.
Yeah, that is true. Chandler, let's take a 2-3 minute break, and we'll come back and talk about some other issues facing the Oak Ridge Police Department.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. A My Social Security account allows you to access your earnings history and benefits information, request a replacement Social Security card, get a proof of income letter, estimate and apply for benefits, and more. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security. Securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
This is my husband, Alex Hussey. Alex is about 2 weeks away from coming home.
I was point man in foot patrol, and I stopped on the bomb. Lost my legs, my left hand in an explosion.
And he suffered a severe traumatic brain injury.
As America's veterans face challenges, DAV is there.
There are so many mountains to climb, and we do it together.
With the right support, more veterans can reach victories great and small.
To watch Alex take on this mountain, that's what this is all about.
DAV provides a lifetime of support to veterans of every generation, helping more than 1 million veterans each year.
Alex has conquered this mountain. That's something he won't forget.
With the right support, there are no limits.
Look at that smile! You did it!
But there's more to be done and more victories to be won.
This has meant so much.
Thank you, DAV.
Alex Hussey, thank you for your service. Support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
Always ready, always there. Visit NationalGuard.com to find out more.
Hello, I'm District Attorney General Dave Clark. My fellow DAs and I successfully fought for new elder abuse laws and procedures that have police departments and agencies using improved tools to protect our seniors. Victims of elder abuse are often unable to recognize or report abuse themselves. They need your voice. If you suspect abuse, contact local law enforcement or Adult Protective Services. Let's work together to protect our seniors.
Welcome back to Between the Lines. We're covering as much stuff as we can for Oak Ridgers and people to understand. And the Chief's doing a great job of telling us some of the things that are going on. Chief, tell me about strategic planning and how you have to approach the overall. I have a background in that in development. You have a background from school and everything and well educated. How do you approach everything?
Going back 4 years ago, strategic planning does a lot more than just give you a plan. It also reduces stress for your team members because they understand what's expected of them. And the other thing that there's things you learn in school and there's things you learn by doing. So there's one thing about taking things you learn in school, but when you apply them, you start learning more lessons. And one of the things that we did early on, when you're looking at the fall of 2018, we included the whole department into the strategic planning process. So we did a SWOT analysis and asked all the employees, not just police officers, dispatchers, animal control officers, records people, what are our internal strengths and weaknesses? What are our external opportunities and threats? And they took it very seriously. 8 pages later, we had a list of all these things they saw, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we published it all. Whether we could justify it or not, that first year we put it all in there because it was like a cleansing for them. They just wanted to get it all out and get it on paper. And it was really cool to be able to capture it all because you could almost immediately start addressing some things that they said, here's a weakness. Well, let's start working on that weakness. What can we do to offset that? What can we do to correct it? One of them was we don't have any drug dogs. Let's start working on that. We're not working with the crime task force. Well, let's start working on getting people in the crime task force. These are all things pointed out by the employees. Once you start having a strategic plan laid out that shows you, here's our vision, our vision is not what we say about ourselves, it's what we want our customers to say about us. So when our citizens start describing us as a professional law enforcement agency committed to making Oak Ridge an attractive place to live, work, and visit, when they describe us that way, then it becomes our brand. So we work really hard on developing our brand, and if any of our officers, men or women, are watching this, or anybody, they're going to smile when they heard me say the word brand because they talk about it a lot.
I do all day long in my work. That's right.
Yeah, we talk about the brand a lot, and then so once you got that laid out, and you got your mission laid out, and then everybody sees the same thing you're headed toward, and then to have your goals, and to have the goals of reduce crime, enhance public safety, which means reduce crashes, maintain a no-kill animal shelter, which we're hugely successful at.
And which you have a reputation for.
Oh my goodness! Our euthanization rate going back to 2015, we went from having say 150 animals a year euthanized. I think we had 15 last year that were euthanized, and maybe about one per month.
And that, make sure our people understand that's illness or disease or something that was unavoidable.
Absolutely. But that's, and I think about the compassion fatigue for those employees dealing with that. So I'm really happy, and that comes from the work that they do.
Yeah.
You know, and because every animal we adopt out is spayed or neutered.
And this town loves animals. I mean, you got a lot of people in this town that are animals. And not that I'm married to one as well, but I mean, they're all animals are, you know. My wife walks in, sits down, and 3 animals jump in her lap. I don't even see her.
But I'm thrilled at the job that team does. But that's just one example.
And they're always down there. Every time I go in there to find an animal or do something, maybe once a year, twice, there's always an officer in there.
Yes, sir.
And that says a lot.
The other parts of it were, like this part, it was to develop and maintain an effective team, effective workforce, which is something we're still working toward.
And there was work to do when you got here.
The biggest challenge really was just building a healthy culture and letting people feel valued, and you had such talented people and still do, such a talented team. I'm so blessed.
Yeah, you got a good team.
People, like you said earlier about me doing a good job, it's not me. I am so blessed with men and women who do such a fantastic job. I just encourage them, support them, equip them, train them, and get out of their way and let them do their job.
But to be fair to you, not all people do that. Leadership is defined in different paths, and you're able to facilitate some growth and some space and let them do their thing. See, what you did when you brought everybody in that first time is you gave them a chance. They hadn't had it in a long time. And you gave them a chance to buy in and get vetted. Here, I'm going to listen. You express your opinion. Then they owned it. They owned a piece of it. And you used good leadership techniques on that one. That was excellent.
It was interesting. The first time we did employee rollout, we had a meeting, about 2-hour meeting, where everybody had to come to explain the strategic plan. About here it is. Let me explain it to you. And we took a break, and I had a few young officers come to me during breaks and said, well, Chief, why don't you just tell us what you want us to do? I said, I did. Reduce crime. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but tell us what. I said, no, I told you the what. I just didn't tell you the how.
That's right.
I said, you know the how a lot better than I do. You're out there doing it every day. Right. You understand how to do the job better than I do because you're the one that's out there. I said, the strategies, the tasks, the things you do, you know that stuff better than I do. I said, I want you to be creative and innovative and come up with original ideas. They said, you mean we could come up with our own ideas? I said, absolutely. I said, 85 of us thinking is a lot smarter than one of us thinking.
That's right.
So I said, I got a challenge for you. I'll tell you what. Well, at that time, it was in the fall. I said, we're coming up into shoplifting season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I said, why don't you see what you can do to reduce shoplifting? They said, You mean come up with their own ideas? I said, yes. They said, challenge accepted. So from that point on, I mean, they would be sending each other messages on their computers when they're working. Hey, don't forget to turn on your cruise lights. Well, so one of them came up with the idea that not turn your flashing blue lights on, but the cruise lights. It's just lights up the bar during the hours when their time and place that their hotspots show. This is the time of the day of the week, and the location where our crimes will be happening. Turn on your cruise lights and let people see there's a police car in that shopping area. And this is not sergeants and lieutenants. This is officers reminding each other. One day I drove through and there was one of our cars was parked. And I'm like, and most people wouldn't know this, but I knew it was one of our spare cars. Is it real or is it Memorex? I mean, is it? Well, no, they just parked it there.
Yeah.
You know, and they're just trying all these different things, and I hear them on the radio saying, "Hey, don't forget to go do a walkthrough of your businesses at such and such time." This is not supervisors; this is officers saying that because they owned it. It was their idea. It was really cool, and shoplifting went down during that time.
Oh, it goes back to crime and wrecks and traffic enforcement. The more cars you have out there, the better. Let's talk about another subject that's been controversial over the years, and I kind of agree with your policy. Would there be less crime if every officer took his car home?
Well, we've almost got that happening right now. I'm real close to that.
You support that theory, huh?
Yes, sir. We're pretty close to that. And let me tell you, it's not even just about the crime rate. To me, it's about response. Because if I have some, like the day the tower got knocked down. Well, the day the tower got knocked down by the truck, I needed people to respond to direct traffic. I mean, we didn't have enough officers. It took almost everybody that wasn't working night shift at the time just to make it happen. Well, that means if you didn't have a take-home car, you had to drive from wherever you live, try to drive through the critical incident, get to the station, load your car, and drive back to where you had to go. Whereas if you just had your car at home, you drive to where I need you, and you can be there within 20, 25 minutes.
So you addressed my point always in help advising and budgeting was, if you live in the jurisdiction, it's a supportive idea. But if I live in West Knoxville or I live on the other side of Morgan County and I work here, there's no function of taking a car home.
Well, what we've started doing is, and we just changed this in the last couple of months, is we did have a 10-mile limit outside city limits.
Okay, that's all right.
We changed it to 25 miles from the station, which didn't change it a lot, but it changed it by 7 or 8 miles.
Give more and more.
So, and it got pretty much everybody. Pretty much everybody. So if I have a critical incident happen now and I need to call in the troops, they can come straight to where I need them to go, and they don't have to drive past a critical incident to go get the car and come back.
So some people are actually doing that now.
We're doing that now.
I didn't know that. That's good.
Yes, sir.
I need more police officers in my area, I guess. I haven't noticed it, but that's a very positive thing. See, the sheriff's department in Anderson has always got criticism because there were so many people so far away, and you got to double your cars. I mean, it's pretty simple. If I'm home with my car, somebody else has got to have another car.
Well, the best thing is, though, as far as the take-home cars, our cars last longer.
Yeah,
they're better cared for.
That's correct.
They're better rested because they're not running hot. Before, they were hot seating the cars.
There's a savings.
And they would last about 2.5, 3 years, and they were worn out. They were done.
Yeah.
Our cars now are lasting 8 to 10 years.
See, and they treat like their own car. You're right. They have their own car. That's right.
And when you're driving 630,000 miles a year, and it means you got to replace 5 vehicles every year. But regardless of how many cars you have, you still got to replace. You're still driving the same number of miles. It just means you got to replace the cars more often. So I like spreading it out over that 8 or 10 years and getting more years service. And our garage is so good at what they do. They keep the cars running fantastic. I mean, I can't brag enough on them. The way they see it is their cars. They just loan them to us. Yeah. They do such a good job with them.
Now I'm gonna do a little politicking, not with you, but with some people, and I'm gonna talk. I told my wife's on county commission now. She just got elected, and I have some other friends that are involved in it. I said, I don't have any interest. I do a lot of work on the federal level and political stuff, but I said, but I'm going to tell you one thing, and I will get involved, and I will use my resources. We do not move that Oak Ridge Court to Clinton. They want to consolidate, build a justice center, all that. I said, I don't care if you build a 6-story justice center. Just don't take my court out of Oak Ridge. Now, that's an impact that I argue from citizens, seniors, witnesses, victims, but also has an economic impact on you.
It's going to cost me a lot of money.
That's right.
because that means they got to pay people to drive to Clinton to go to court. Whereas
And sit there.
And the other part of that is if they're on duty, that means I got to have somebody else come in and work while that person goes.
It's a disaster.
So it would be very expensive to pay the overtime.
We're going to fight that to the tooth. And there's a private act that establishes this court, and I'm 1993, and I'm 99% sure you got to have 2/3 vote to reverse the private act. So if the 6 Oak Ridge commissioners will do their job, we got enough. But I think some others will support it. I think the Claxton and Arbor Springs people support it. And I just think, look, getting in my background, but basically we provide 56% of the revenue commercially. There's crime happens in commercial areas. We need that court. The court's been good. It's a decent location. Officers like it. They're in, they're out. I remember in the old days, Page, come back in an hour, whatever. We have good officers in Oak Ridge. I mean, they're down there very nice. They're very professional.
Yes, sir.
And they do a great job.
Appreciate you saying that.
No, I mean,
appreciate you saying that.
I mean, I hear it all the time, and I'm
very proud of
them. They're just great guys, and I've known a lot of them, and girls. I mean, I shouldn't say that. It's just been great. But
the 6 that we just hired to start this week, 3 of them are females.
Good.
I'm pretty happy about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's there's just all kinds of crime out there. You need diversity. I mean, you need different things, and they're just as good on any of the other stuff. I'd actually like to see the shooting range. I would say I taught basketball for years in AAU in the late 70s and 80s, and the female teams always shot free throws better than the male teams because they were more distant, more structured. But obviously the physicality was an issue and that kind of stuff. But I can bet that women are good shots.
I've seen some very good competition shooters that when my dad was coaching, when he's a firearms instructor, and some of his shooters were female, they're just, And part of it is, and it's not just male or female.
That's right.
When I was teaching at the academy, we would have some people who just didn't have much experience and had never shot a gun before.
Sure.
And so I was a young instructor at the time, and Mackie Jones, who later became the chief in Greenville, he'd say, Robin, why don't you take these 3 shooters over on the side and work with them and do some one-on-one time with them. And sometimes you'd have male and female shooters, they'd never shot before, but because they had never shot before, they'd listen to you.
That's the way it is.
They didn't have any bad habits, and so you could work with them, and they would do exactly what you taught them to do, and they'd be driving nails just because they didn't have any bad habits.
That's right. That's like I played basketball and football. In football when I was younger in high school, and basketball went on and played in college. But the bottom line is I couldn't be coached in basketball. I could do anything. I didn't care. When I went on a football field, I didn't know. He said, take 2 steps and go right. So I took 2 steps and went right in the ball and got there on time. So you're right. When you don't know a lot about something, you pay very careful attention to the instructions. You really, really do. Let's take a break. We're going to ask a few more questions in our final break, after our final break, and then we're going to talk about the future.
Unlike other health concerns, mental illness is not always easy to see.
DEPR.
Mental illness doesn't show up on a scale. Bipolar? Sorting out a mental health concern takes professional diagnosis and treatment.
Anxiety. I thought so.
If you or a loved one has a mental health concern, don't go it alone. For 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral, call 1-800-662-HELP. Learn more at samhsa.gov/support.
What if one day you went to your secret hiding place, and instead of what you came for, you found this? What would you do? The truth is, all drug use comes with risk. Before drugs take their toll on you and your family, know that there is help. You can quit. If you or someone you love is struggling with drug use, call 1-800-662-HELP for 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral, or go to samhsa.gov/knowtherisks.
Hello, I'm District Attorney General Dave Clark. My fellow DAs and I successfully fought for new elder abuse laws and procedures that have police departments and agencies using improved tools to protect our seniors. Victims of elder abuse are often unable to recognize or report abuse themselves. They need your voice. If you suspect abuse, contact local law enforcement or Adult Protective Services. Let's work together to protect our seniors.
I'm Andrew Saul, Commissioner of Social Security. Beware of telephone scammers pretending to be government employees. Real Social Security employees will never threaten you. Callers threatening you with arrest or other legal action and demanding money are not from us. If you receive a call like this, hang up Do not provide them with any form of payment or information. Report the call at oig.ssa.gov.
Welcome back to Between the Lines. Chief Smith's putting on a clinic for me, catching me up on everything. It's been a long time. He's been an instructor, and it's easy to see that. He's got a lot to talk about. We got a few minutes left, 12, 13 minutes. I just want to say, you know, in every industry we look at how things are changing and where they're going and what they're doing. Obviously, there was a big thing in the 30s when the FBI started doing interstate things. You look at the history of policing, the evolution of the TBI and other things. How dependent are agencies on each other? You made an example of the Knoxville coming over here in technology. You got them very quick. You could see that perpetrator on the computer was in your county. As technology and interagency stuff, you're not in a capsule over here. You're not in a vacuum. On a day-to-day basis, what kind of stuff do you
share information in real time with these other agencies all the time. We share our cameras with each other, the license plate readers. We share that information so if they're looking for a suspect, they can check to see, did that tag come through our city, with this tag that was stolen or whatever. We share that information with our partners around us. Matter of fact, once we started using license plate readers and the other jurisdictions around us also started picking up and using them, our stolen cars went way down because it's like we had a safety net around us, and as a hedge of protection, they were catching them before they ever got to us. So us all these different agencies working together, whether it's Clinton, Anderson County, Roane County, Oliver Springs, Rocky Top, we all just work together to share information. You don't want to keep everything to yourself and not let someone else know. Even though in a lot of ways we compete for employees, of course. Sure. But
same goal though.
But yes, and so we want to raise the entire law enforcement community. Sure. We look at Roane County and Anderson County. First of all, let's make them safer. Let's make Roane County and Anderson County safer, because if I can make both those counties safer, well, Oak Ridge is safer. Mm-hmm. So we work on trying to not just do things only in Oak Ridge, but we want to share information and share training and spend a lot of time. If we're putting on training, we'll invite them to attend because we want them to know the same things we do.
Tell me about schools. What are you doing with schools? Oak Ridge schools.
Right now, I have 3 school resource officers.
Okay. They split the schools up?
I have one of them at the high school, one at Robertsville, one at Jefferson Middle School. And then they're all assigned the lower schools.
Yeah, I don't think this is me. I think police officers in the lower schools is just, it has a conflicting effect, I think, in some ways. I don't know.
I'm not the expert on that.
I'm not either.
I've got some officers that could probably tell us how that all
why
works.
Why does a second grader think that something's going on or he gets scared, whereas Robertsville or Jefferson kid understands what's going on?
Or maybe if you spend time, it's like when I was a police officer in Sevierville, it was not unusual for me to just go visit schools and walk through.
That's a great thing.
Kids wanting to hug you and things like that.
They're great. I meant stationed there.
Yeah, but they don't want to. But they don't want to. Only time they ever see you is when something's wrong.
That's right.
So maybe it would be a good thing. I would like to see us increase our school resource officer team over the next 5 years. But so right now I'm looking at workload, not just for school resource officers, but for the whole department. Looking at criminal investigations. Mm-hmm. Every team within the department, do we have the right number of people in the right places doing the right things? So when you
do you have the resources to support that?
Well, here's the way the system works, though. It's just my job to say, here's what it would take, and I do the proposal. Here's what it would take to maintain this level of service. It's outside my scope to decide whether we can afford to do it or not. So, and I'm not saying that to put the blame or the guilt on someone else. It's just that's how the process works. Yep. It's my job to say, here's what the crime rate is. And can we talk about the crime rate a minute?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that.
All right, so this is something, I'd be remiss to not talk about this, is that, 4 years ago we started doing the time and place policing, data-driven approach to crime and traffic safety, a huge part of our strategic plan, so all the officers understood the same thing, do traffic enforcement in these areas at this time. So crime's gone down 22% in the last 4 years.
Overall, in the city? All crimes?
Group A crimes, what they call Group A. Group B crimes are the ones you have to make an arrest for it to be counted.
Class C misdemeanor type stuff.
You're talking about things like DUIs, drug-related arrests. But here's the interesting thing.
The B's are down too?
Our arrests for Group B crimes arrests are up.
That's good, though.
Here's the cool thing, though. So 2017, we're making about 8,000 traffic stops a year. Well, now we're making about 12,000 traffic stops a year. So with a huge increase in traffic stops, we're starting to see a decrease in all other calls for service now. So all your calls are starting to go down. Think about it from a math point of view.
That's a preventative resource.
If you're making a traffic stop, it takes about 16 minutes
right.
to make the traffic stop, issue a citation, whatever you're doing. If it's another call for service, it's about 36 minutes times 2 officers, plus the time it takes to write the report. So you're looking over an hour, more than an hour tied up for an hour and a half to do whatever it takes to do this report, as opposed to 16 minutes for a traffic stop. So the more traffic stops we make, if those crimes come down 22%, those Group B arrests have gone up, but then the other crimes are coming down because of that,
right.
It's making it safer. That means we have time to make more traffic stops because
right.
the other calls are going down. It's pretty cool to watch the numbers, and our rate of clearances of cases is staying around 60%. Where I look at some of our competitors in other places where they're around 40%.
Define clearance for our viewers.
You got a case, it's you either made an arrest or you identified who committed the crime, otherwise committed it. You cleared it by arrest or other means, by you know who did it. So about 60% of our cases are cleared.
And they get through the court system one way or the other. It's in their hands at that
So
point.
I want to jump on that for a minute. You mentioned earlier, you said something about, you want to say something about drugs. You said something.
I just think we're all interested in, I mean, it's more the glamour thing, right? I think we're interested in what are the drugs. All I hear about is heroin and fentanyl. See, when you had to shoot your arm, it was a lot more serious. But you can pop a pill now, it's dangerous.
Fentanyl, meth are big here. Overdoses became a real problem a year ago. I mean, they went, we were watching the graph, and it just went straight up
That's
in
got
1 year.
That's got to be a tainted drug or something.
So I was talking to Lieutenant Jeremy Huddleston, who does a lot of our crime analysis. He leads a lot of our information analysis work. And I said, what do you think we can do about it? And I asked him, I said, what about the time and place policing? What about the DDAX approach? And he started working on that, looking at where do your overdoses happen. For a while we were
when you say overdose, is that deaths or just overdoses?
Just overdoses.
Both of them, okay.
And the problem with that is we don't always know when somebody overdosed because they're actually, drug dealers are giving Narcan spray to the people they're selling drugs to so they can Narcan each other and bring each other back so we don't always know. But we do know, so we start tracking deaths and looking at it that way. So since we started doing that and we started doing time and place policing for overdoses, and they start seeing black and white cars around the areas where they were overdosing, those have gone down. They've trended down significantly in the current fiscal year. So that's pretty interesting. We didn't know if that would work or not, and we don't know if it's because of the strategy we applied. So we'll need to see 2 or 3 years in a row before we see what the real payoff is. But before we were looking at drug-related offenses, and you really can't use that as a measuring stick because do you have more drug-related offenses because you're paying more attention to it? You made more arrests?
That's right.
Or were there actually more drug offenses?
Yeah,
you don't really know. But overdoses is kind of hard to change that. So
you have to go by hospital stats too. I mean, you got a lot of things you can look at. What were they? But I've got friends that sticking people in rehab, their kids, and it's all based on fentanyl being tainted into with the heroines and other things. And that's some dangerous stuff.
So we started working with the medical examiner's office and getting their data on the actual deaths. We just wanted to be. We don't want anybody to die. We want to try to encourage people to stop using drugs and to be more responsible. But the best we can do is make them uncomfortable doing it in Oak Ridge.
Oh, absolutely.
That's
always been the law enforcement strategy. That's always been the law enforcement strategy is let's send them over to the next county to do drugs.
But that's why we're working together. Yeah. That's why we all work together, so we're all trying to approach the same problem.
Chief, the collateral issues are so huge. These people have nowhere to live. They have nothing. A lot of these people have and there's others. Then they get out, they feel better, they serve 90 days, they're cleaned up, they go out and they go right back to the same environment they got out of. And it's tough. It's really tough. I mean, my wife's in the business, others are, but you're doing a fantastic job. And I want want to give some credit to Warren Gooch and the council.
Yes, sir.
They really have prioritized safety in our city, and a lot of councils aren't that way. You've worked in a lot of places. You know what it's like.
We've been very supported, not by our council, by administration, by the citizens.
Yeah.
It's been a great place. It's a great place to police.
And listen, and I'm in the middle of we got council stuff coming up, but we have more resources than we've had in the past. I mean, we have internet taxes. This is not his issue. This is me talking. But we have internet issues. We have money. We're generating a lot more revenue than we ever did based on technology being able to protect us. Let's invest that in our police and fire, please. Let's get some stuff done to help them maintain what they need to do. That's very, very important. Chief, what else you want to say? We got a couple minutes.
I'm just very proud of the men and women of the Oak Ridge Police Department, whether it's sworn, non-sworn. The work our dispatchers do is incredible.
It's kind of dear to your heart, dispatch.
It is. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
But to see how they stay so calm under pressure and how they handle supporting the officers out there, and what a great job the officers do of problem solving. We take the approach of, we push the decision-making down to the lowest level that a decision can be made.
Sure.
And they take that very seriously, and it's really doing a good job of raising up our future leaders. They're learning how to make decisions and how to work together. They're a good team. They care about each other, and they care about the citizens of Oak Ridge.
Well, and you know, you've done management training, and I have. The bottom line is, you know before you start whether you got a good chance to win or not. Those, if they're bought in, they're vetted, and they believe, and they want to participate, they usually do well.
Yes.
And that's up to you to make that environment, and the leaders of the city. Then they can get in, as you said, and be creative and do what they want to do. But they can't do that if somebody's looking over their shoulder every 10 minutes.
Absolutely.
And you're to be applauded for that. And I think it's great. And
I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about this night and talk about the men and women of the ORPD.
Yeah.
It's been a real honor to be here, and I love the opportunity. I talk about them all the time.
Yeah.
So,
and you know, and I talk to people, and I don't think people are afraid to talk to the police officer if they have an issue, whether they're young, middle-aged. I think people are just very happy with the Oak Ridge Police Department.
Well, thanks for having me on.
No, it's great to have you, Chief. I've heard so much about you. Folks, we'll be back next Thursday night live. We appreciate you watching. Great show, important show.
Since the moment you were born, I've made 1,000 wishes. Wishes for your future in a world that's changing fast. Because no matter what you do in this life, what matters to me is that you keep doing.
The life of every child is precious. If you care for a child or teenager with a disability and have limited income and resources, they may qualify for monthly cash payments through the Supplemental Security Income Program, or SSI. Call Social Security at 1-800-772-1213 or visit ssa.gov/SSI-Kids to learn more. That's ssa.gov/SSI Kids. Message produced by Social Security at U.S. taxpayer expense.
This is my husband, Alex Hussey. Alex is about 2 weeks away from coming home.
I was playing man in foot patrol, and I stepped on the bomb. Lost my legs and my left hand in an explosion.
And he suffered a severe traumatic brain injury.
As America's veterans face challenges, DAV is there.
There are so many mountains to climb, and we do it together.
With the right support, more veterans can reach victories great and small.
To watch Alex take on this mountain, that's what this is all about.
DAV provides a lifetime of support to veterans of every generation, helping more than 1 million veterans each year.
Alex has conquered this